What's our show called again?
Mostly Harmless.
Got it. All right. Mostly Harmless.
Out for the...
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another fun-filled episode of Mostly Harmless. I'm Matt.
And I'm Sarah.
And today we're going to talk about the curious case of Natalia Grace. It rhymes.
Yes, I think that was the point when ID titled their saga. And they allegedly, they did not know it was going to turn into a 3-season ordeal. Or did they?
The best things always evolve on their own.
I know.
For those of you who are unaware, we will put up and link to some articles about this very interesting story that we're about to dive into. It's essentially, going back, we'll just start with how I found out about this before anybody else.
Matt actually told me about this case. So take it away, Matt.
So years ago, 4 years, as in not 4 years, but 4 years, I was doing
some years ago.
I was doing a podcast for dads called Shits and Giggles, later rebranded to Dad Ventures in Parenting, because of some rigid naming guidelines that Apple Podcasts, I never forgave them for that, actually. Apparently they wouldn't let me have the word shit in my title without putting an asterisk in it. But there were plenty of other people, including a podcast called Guys We've Fucked, that got through over mine. But we're not here to hash that out. But I did a podcast, and a segment on that was a parental news section. And there were, and unfortunately, I didn't put any descriptions. I have all the podcast episodes, but I don't have the descriptions. I just have the raw data.
Right, yeah.
So there were almost 200 episodes of that show. So like, I would really have trouble finding it. But I did 3 separate episodes about this because I was constantly Googling like dad news and parental news and stuff like that, just to have like a news segment on my podcast. And one day I came across this story about this girl who, what it was billed at the time, and this had to have been, I want to say this had to have been like 4 years ago when I started doing the dad podcast. So 4 years ago.
Penny was a baby when you...
Yeah. And I saw this title of an article that was something to the effect of like 20-something-year-old woman pretending to be adopted child attempts murder. So basically something like that. Like,
yeah.
And so I said I had to read about it. And so I read the article, and it was essentially telling me the story of this girl, Natalia Grace, who was adopted from Ukraine, and she got adopted by multiple people. And the most recent in that time frame was these people, Michael, what was their last name?
The Barnett.
The Barnetts. And so this whole story about, she would stand above us with a knife and all this stuff, just reading. There was no stories about it. There was no news about it besides this like article. And I'm pretty sure it was from an obscure news website. So nothing too out there, just something I'd happened to come across. And I was like, this is crazy. So I went over it at that point, and then some updates happened a couple weeks later. So I went over it again, and then a few more things. But then ID Discovery came out with this seeking Natalia, basically.
The curious case.
Yeah, the curious case of Benjamin Button. And so that got into so much more because it was several episodes of deep diving into the validity of this story.
Well, Natalia's story has many layers, and as time has gone on, the story has kind of taken on different iterations. So it starts out when you and I got our boots on the ground with this story. It was, is or isn't she? Is she 9?
Right.
Is she 22? That was like the hot discussion.
And I guess, again, for those of you who are tuning in with no prior knowledge of this, we have to go back to the fact that she has a very rare case of dwarfism with multiple like spinal issues and all kinds of things. So it's not like, I wonder if that 5'9" woman is really a 9-year-old. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like there's all kinds of reasons why you wouldn't just offhand be able to just see, well, that's clearly a 20-something-year-old woman.
So let's back up. Natalia's story enters the mainstream media because she was abandoned in an apartment by her adoptive parents, Michael and Christine Barnett. And essentially, the crux of the criminal case was whether or not she was an adult. The Barnetts, Christine and Michael, were claiming she is in her mid-20s. And she is saying, hey, I'm 9. And yes, she has this rare form of dwarfism. Christine claimed to have all this evidence that she had gone through puberty already. Watch the first 2 seasons of The Curious Case of Natalia Grace. The reason why I wanted to talk about this today is because when this episode comes out, the 3rd season will be premiering, and her story will have taken yet another turn.
And it seems to be a world filled with twists and turns for the story. So one of the things going back, basically, so just to start this in an innocent place, was this girl was essentially up for adoption. She was with some people originally in New Hampshire, I believe it was the place where her.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know locales. I don't know locales. But here's the thing. I really feel like this is all going to come down to, we need to know more about this first family that brought Natalia to the United States, because
the Barnetts did not bring her to the United States.
And here's the thing. If you guys have been following Reality Squad for a while, I had briefly covered the story of Micah Stauffer, who was a family vlogger mom who literally rehomed a baby she adopted from China. And there is this dark aspect of international adoptions and this whole layer of performative adopting, performative parenting. And I mean, I am not educated or knowledgeable enough to speak on the topic, but it's a problem. It's an issue. And there was the instance of Micah Stauffer. Then I think the biggest criticism of the Barnetts was that Christine had gained publicity based off the fact that she had a high academically achieving son who I think he was autistic.
He's on the spectrum.
He is autistic, but he is like a savant.
Right.
So she basically wanted to prove that she could do that with any kid, basically.
You could just turn kids into geniuses.
That is the accusation against Christine, is that she was seeking out, in particular, a child that had special needs, just like her autistic son, and that she could
look how we persevere
make
and overcome.
lightning strike twice, essentially. So they happen upon Natalia.
So what had happened was they had already set up an adoption from Haiti, I believe it was. They had it set up to be getting a child from Haiti. It was all ready to go through, and then a major earthquake tore through Haiti, which basically somehow everything from that. I would imagine the kid would want to get out of there twice as badly at that point, but I'm not sure about the situation.
When that can just muddy up the ability for governmental paperwork and the bureaucracy of it all to go through, I'm sure just foiled that plan.
Right. And so when that fell through, according to Michael himself, he said it was almost immediately, because I guess he must have been on some sort of public forum where people were aware of this, because he was reached out to in what could only be described as an almost clandestine manner to be like, we have this kid ready to go for adoption right now, or Or we're not doing, if you don't do, you got 24 hours or she's going into the foster care system, which essentially to me sounds like a threat. I'm going to send this kid to foster care if you don't bite down on it, which we all know. I mean, God bless the foster care system, but it also is not the greatest place for kids, but it's the shitty system that we have to work with right now. It
would have been better than being in an apartment by yourself at 9 years old, though.
I mean, a part of me wishes I had an apartment by myself at 9 years old, but it is what it is.
Yes, I'm sure all of us threatened to run away from home. Right. But the fact of the matter is, like, no, you should not be on your own at 9 years old.
On a humanitarian level, and on a level where I am essentially already prepared to be adopting someone. You're telling me now all I have to do is go to Florida, or all I have to do, I think they might have lived in Florida, that's whatever, but all I have to do is go to Florida. Now is no more international thing. Great. I mean, granted, she's from Ukraine, but like there's no back and forth between where I'm going to go. The other one fell through. I'm already ready to adopt someone. I would hate to be the reason that some kid has to go to the foster care system, and I'm already ready to do this. So let me do it. I'm going to adopt them. That sounds right at this point, everything seems above board.
So Natalia's original adopted family, they got in contact with the Barnetts, and they were essentially looking to rehome Natalia.
Right. Well, it was through an agency. Yeah. It wasn't just the family, but they wanted to offload the person that they had adopted. As
this story develops, because what ends up happening is Christine and Michael make all these outrageous claims about Natalia, that she has gone through puberty, that she is exhibiting signs of being older than she is claiming to be. They have her legally re-aged, and they abandoned her in an apartment. This is all because they say she's dangerous. She's trying to poison Christine. She's threatening to kill them and all this stuff.
Knives on the edge of their bed and in their room and stuff like that.
There was a Dr. Phil episode because then eventually Natalia goes to live with a new family, and she will eventually be adopted by this new family. And that's the man's family. And they were claiming for years, Natalia doesn't exhibit any behavior like that.
Perfectly normal
She's a perfectly normal kid. She's like, at the time she went on Dr. Phil, she was 16
teenager.
Or something like that. So in my opinion, because not very much is known about Natalia's original living situation when she came to the United States.
Right.
There's an allegation that she harmed one of the other kids that was living with this family. I don't know if it was their biological kid or another foster or adopted kid, but she harmed another kid, and that's why they were trying to rehome her. My question is why? I think in order to get a better understanding of who Natalia is, because I just saw, and I'll put up a picture here, she's on People magazine, and the title is Victim or Villain. Yeah. I guess that's the crux of why we're 3 seasons into talking about her.
Let's just start with re-aging a person.
Yeah.
Like, okay, maybe you don't agree with a birth certificate. I've never heard of a human being, we're not re-aging like, oh, okay, there's a discrepancy. I think in one of these things that they were talking about, they're like, oh, she might be 8, she might be 11. Okay. They re-aged her from like 11 to 22 or something like that.
Yeah, I think her birth year is like 2003.
Yeah.
And they legally re-aged her to 1989.
Yeah.
Which is like 2 years younger than us.
Swift.
Tay-Sway.
And so I'm like, that is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and the fact that they were able to, and if you watch this show, they got a doctor to sign. This was a whole thing.
A judge. I don't know about a doctor, but
somebody
like a judge
had to provide the evidence that she, quote unquote, showed signs of being 10 years older. Right. And that's just kooky dukes. Like, I can't believe that even is a thing that you can do. I've never heard of that happening ever prior to this, someone being re-aged.
And I think the general consensus, because when we first started following the story, there really was a debate going on of how is Natalia an adult parading as a child,
and it was billed that way.
Right.
You could see,
and we were really having that conversation. That's been pretty much put to rest.
Right.
They've done DNA tests. They've found her biological mother. They've done all the things, dental examinations and all these things. They have determined she is born in 2003.
You're close enough.
Yeah.
Right? Not
apparently, and this is really sad, but apparently it's actually common, maybe not common, but it's not infrequent for them to maybe fudge a year or two younger, make a kid a year or two younger to make it with international adoptions. As I have watched numerous documentaries about this story, that happens fairly frequently, that a kid will come over from another country and they're really 7, but they'll say they're 5.
Sure.
You know?
Well, I mean, just like a lot of younger kids tend to get adopted over older kids. So
Right.
when you're past what would be whatever to be considered that age,
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah.
I don't know anything from that. That's outside of my
But that's
expertise.
1 or 2 years. We're not talking.
And again, that's
they're
why
sending over a woman in her mid-20s.
Hello.
Yeah.
I'm 5 years old and
Yeah.
I'm looking. Thank you for
Yeah.
adopting me.
But so I think I'm very curious, the curious case of why did this family, because
Yeah, we don't know anything about the
for
original
example,
family, really.
The case with Micah Stauffer, this little boy that they had adopted, his disabilities were much more severe, they claim, than they had been told. And they just weren't
Equipped.
mentally, physically, emotionally equipped to help him at the level that he needed. So honestly, they probably made the right decision for him. And honestly, someone that needs that level of care should not be having their entire life vlogged.
Sure.
Right?
Well, and that's another animal all to itself.
All in all, at the end of the day, probably the best decision was made to rehome that child, but that's so fucked up.
Yeah.
It's so fucked up to think about you're talking about it like it's a animal that
people
didn't
get
work
irritated
out.
about
Yeah.
rehoming dogs.
Yeah,
more so
I do.
than
Yeah, I get worked up about that. You don't make a commitment to something like an animal or a person and then change your mind. That works me up. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I mean this whole situation is murky because it's also when you watch the series, they go and they show you there's video evidence of Natalia when she was younger and then a little bit older and then where she was at the time of the airing of the documentary, and you think this is cut and dry. Okay, you look at the Barnetts and Michael is a fucking weirdo. Like I'm just gonna throw that out there.
That's the nicest way to describe him.
He is someone I would never trust around my children who are not his. I mean, the way that he composes himself is childlike in nature because he's he's always just moving. He's very squirmy. Everything he does, he's moving around.
Squirmy.
And when he's talking to Natalia in one of the later seasons, and spoiler alert, the two of them talk. That was one of the whole things they tease the entire time. Guess what? They talk. Okay. He's just like the way he composes himself is just like very standoffish, but he's like, I'm so sorry. But he's acting like a child. And I've seen like Penny, I've gotten irritated with, and she'll be like, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I said, I'm sorry. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like with really nothing behind it. Not my daughter, but this guy, where it's just like, I'm apologizing because I feel like I need to apologize. But he is wacky, man. Like the fact that anyone would trust this guy. And first of all, the greatest thing this woman, Christine, who we know very little about, ever did was to not participate in this.
Well, and that's the thing. There's so many elements of this story missing. mainly the fact that the crux of the first 2 seasons surrounded the Barnetts and their abandonment of her as a child in an apartment complex. Right. They're pinning all of the blame
on the only person who's not there.
On the only person that's not participating in the documentary.
One of the things that I was talking about was that there is this conversation between Michael and Natalia where the producers bring up her holding knives. And he goes, well, I saw you holding a knife. I saw you doing it. And she's just like, I've never done that. I would never do. How would I get knives? They were always locked away. I couldn't do this. I never did that. She swears up and down that she never did that. And then if you go back to earlier episodes in that show, she says, I hide knives under my bed. I've had knives under my pillow before. Like, so she's straight up bold-faced lying at that point against her own word.
So I think 2 things are at play here. This horrible circumstance, actually,
that's
series
how I
of
would describe Michael as a horrible circumstance.
Well, this series of horrible circumstances happened to Natalia. She was orphaned in her home country. Then she was moved to a foreign country, and she was adopted. That situation didn't work out. Then she was with a new family. Then that new family dumps her in an apartment when she's 9 years old. And even if on your best day you really thought she was in her mid-20s, she's still a dependent adult at best. She has physical limitations that require assisted living.
Let's not even go with the fact that, like, there were what I could say are substantiated allegations of abuse co-signed by Michael. Like, this wasn't just that it was weird and these people, like, effed off to Canada. Christine apparently pepper sprayed her twice. Like, so she said in the documentary, not Christine, but Natalia. No, again, Christine did not participate.
I can't imagine pepper spraying anybody, but especially my own child.
She said, you need to know how it feels. Now, that is a line of thought that I have heard before with specifically in regards to pepper spray is if you are going to carry around pepper spray to spray at people willy-nilly, you should understand how dangerous pepper spray. I'm not saying that's the way you should go, especially pepper spraying a child. This is not about her. Let me quantify. I'm not saying it's okay to pepper spray a child. I'm saying that school of thought I've heard before is, I believe in the military, they pepper spray you, that you know what it feels like.
I have this notion that happens in like
police academy, I believe, maybe. Yeah.
Does it? I make that up?
Hey, feel free to fact check me on it. I have heard of this before. Do
you get pepper sprayed in boot camp?
You should know how it feels.
Yeah.
That situation.
That would make sense.
And it does, because it's one of those things. It's not like you can shoot someone with a gun so that you know how it feels, but like in a non-lethal rubber bullets, tasers, and pepper spray, it's not outside of the realm of responsibility as an adult being deciding to use this, or it's part of your repertoire and your daily use of security or whatever it is that you're doing, to be like, you need to understand what it's like when you use this on someone, so you don't just use this like it's slapping somebody in the face. So I've heard of that realm of possibility, because what Natalia said was, when she was crying explaining this to Michael during their thing, was she the first time she did it, it was so that she knew what it felt like. So what my thoughts on that were, since they didn't expand upon that any further, were perhaps she was buying the pepper spray for Natalia and was saying you have to. Then she says she sprayed her again, and then Michael says that Christine was holding her on the ground and beating her at points. And of course, Michael, Christine and I, we had the same demon. You and me.
We have the same monster.
We have the same monster. Like, again, they're pinning this all on Christine. And I don't think she's blameless. I think she's smart for not participating in this. This would not build a positive case for it. Certainly doesn't make Michael look like a smart man or or a decent man in any way.
Yeah.
And it has actually contradicted adult Natalia's actual statements. She'll say something and then the tape from the previous shows contradicts what she's saying. Not on everything, but on enough stuff where you're like, okay, I'm going to have to call bullshit on some of I would never do that. What? Are you serious? And some of the reactions do feel a little bit like, and I know in documentaries, a lot of that's going to be, this might be the third time you're seeing this, but you need to act like you're seeing it for the first time. But like some of it does seem like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But when you contradict yourself, I'm sorry, you lose credibility. And in a situation where you're trying to establish credibility, contradicting yourself is not the best way to go about it.
The way I perceive Natalia now is that she has learned the art of the grift.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think?
Well, and this is, I mean, not that it was Foster, but it's very Foster-esque, her lifestyle, bouncing from place to place. But the foster system does tend to churn out people who know how to work people so that they can get what they want. You know what I mean?
Well, and I don't even know if it's that, or I think also because I see this in Gypsy Rose Blanchard too. These people rose to prominence and they gained a following because of a notorious event.
Right.
It wasn't for anything magnanimous they did or for any kind of like Oscar winning performance they gave or anything like that. It was because, Gypsy Rose partook in the murder of her mother. For Natalia Grace, this whole curious case situation, she was abandoned as a 9-year-old. Now it's like she has this following, and is she continuing to prey on public sympathy for her? Because now I see a pattern, right? I see a pattern developing. Regardless of if she is a little baby Manson, right? Like, she should not have been abandoned as a 9-year-old in an apartment. I think we can all say that was objectively fucked up.
And if you want to talk about it, this series of unfortunate events that befalls her from start to finish to where we're at right now are very easily shape a human being into, if you were on the edge of being a sociopath, real easy to be pushed over the edge.
Well, so let's say she was a baby psychopath, right? Let's say what Michael and Christine Barnett were saying is true. What her original adopted family did then was the correct thing in getting her into a different living situation. They didn't
living situation.
They didn't just abandon her. Right. So I think we can all say what Michael and Christine did, no matter what Natalia had done to them, she didn't deserve that.
No. Well, and then there's things when she was living on her own. From what she had said during this, and other people had said during this docuseries, was that like one of her neighbors, she would just like hang out over there. Now remember, she's like 9 or whatever, how old she was at this situation. She would just hang out over there, but she was telling people she was as old as she was told she was old. She was whatever, but she would hang out with one of their kids and play, who was of a similar age, like a young kid. And there was some very inappropriate playing happening between these two people. Inappropriate from her actual age to this kid, and way inappropriate from her adult age that she was given. But like there was inappropriate and we'll say sexually based inappropriate stuff that happened. I don't want to go any further into it, but it's in the show. And it's just like everywhere she goes and all these testimonials, it seems that when she goes to explain these things away, it's like, oh, nothing happened. We were just hanging out and playing like a couple of kids, blah, blah, blah. She goes, so-and-so pulled me off this person because she thought I was trying to break his arm. But I just fell down and hit him that way. And that's just the way it happened. And it's like, it seems like you have a prepared excuse for all of these things.
So this is what I'm saying. When you when we look at the big picture, there is a pattern. So she gets adopted and something happens. We don't know a lot of details of what, but then she ends up with the Barnetts. Everything that happens with the Barnetts gets overshadowed by the fact that the Barnetts dumped her in an apartment to fend for herself at 9 years old.
Imagine she got put with two just normal people.
No matter what let's say she was scary to live with and stuff. Even if that was true, it doesn't matter because she's the ultimate victim in this situation because she got dumped in an apartment complex. Then now she's with this man's family who I think the guy's a preacher.
He is, yes.
And this woman, and there is something weird with them because it seems like they collect kids.
Yeah,
and there is something
I'm very interested.
Don't like that.
Very interested for this next season.
Yeah. So, but they seemed to be like her saving grace. This was all good. This was an all good situation. She was so excited, emotional, crying, so excited to get adopted by these people. We saw them in season 2 of Natalia Grace, and this was Natalia Speaks. So this was all told from her point of view. This was her side of the story. The first season was really Michael Barnett's side of the story. But then in the 11th hour at the tail end of the last episode, all of a sudden shit goes sideways with this adopted family who she had been with for
10 years. It was a long time.
Yeah, years at this point. So it's not like she's been with them for 5 months. She had been with them they were on Dr. Phil with her when she did Dr. Phil many, many years ago.
I'm wondering how truthful. I'm very excited to see this next season, but I'm worried. I'm not worried, but I'm somewhat convinced that it's a farce.
I'm gonna play the trailer for season 3 here.
Natalia stabbing her family in the back.
We're done with it.
If you watch The Orphan, it's just like The Orphan.
She was gonna kill everybody.
Do I look like a monster to you?
Even though Natalia's true age was eventually proven, the central mystery remains unsolved. But now, we're hearing Natalia's uncensored and shocking truth from behind closed doors.
I was online. I met a guy. I always wanted to find love.
She was going to go to the United Kingdom.
We can't allow this to happen. We got to cut the internet.
Mans are a cult.
The mans are grifters. I saw Antoine beating Natalia.
It's just sick, twisted lies.
In 2009, we tried to adopt Natalia.
It fell apart. That was heartbreaking. We need to get her out of there. Oh God. I think my dad is gonna snap.
You're not gonna get away. What the hell did I get myself into?
This couple comes back into the picture, and this woman had wanted to adopt. She's a little person and her husband's a little person. And she had wanted to adopt Natalia before, I think, when her original family had her, but before the Barnetts had her. And something happened and that fell through. And I forget what happened there. Yeah, it is in season 1 because this couple appears in season 1. So now they're literally out here under the cloak of darkness, jailbreaking Natalia out of this living situation with the man.
Don't say they, because the husband.
Yeah, you're right.
The husband goes. Yeah. He says obviously in the trailer, you just saw it, but he goes, it's either me or Natalia.
Either me or Natalia, yeah.
Unfortunately, if I had known all this information, it's gonna be not Natalia.
Well, so it's like, what is happening? What is happening that you need to leave in the middle of the night? Escape. This is an escape that we're witnessing. And she's saying, oh, my dad's going to be so pissed and this and that. And then there's, accusations of abuse and all this stuff.
Allegedly.
And it's the cycle is repeating. The pattern is again.
Well, and that's not too in normal, I guess you can't really call it normal, but in what would be your average case of abuse is that abuse is cyclical. a lot of, when you are abused, there's a tendency that you turn it over and tend to abuse and so on and so forth. And that's not me talking to my ass. I've heard that multiple times.
Yeah.
And so the worse it gets, the worse it can get. You know what I mean? It's just going to build up like a snowball until it becomes this massive thing. And I'm curious as to what is on show for the cameras, because I believe in the last series she was in, she said she was writing a book and it's gonna sell 1 million copies, and it's like, yeah, we're all gonna profit off of this, and everyone's gonna make. It's not like they did these series for free. Everyone got a taste of this money. You know what I mean? This wasn't a documentary true to form, as in like we're doing it for the people to know. Everyone got paid. This wasn't what I mean? Like, so what are we doing? Are we gonna have a season 3? Maybe we'll have a season 4. Maybe we'll have a season 5. Maybe this is going to turn from a genuine concern about human character into a caricature of humanity that just gets put on display.
That's what we're seeing with Gypsy Rose. So Gypsy Rose has been out of prison for a little over a year. She's gotten married, gotten divorced, and she had her baby on the 1 year anniversary of her release from prison. You can't write that. Like
Happy
that.
birthday.
Yeah, honestly. So, and her story is documented for TV on I think Lifetime does her reality show. So yeah, it turned into it went from Prison Confessions of Gypsy Rose to now Life After Lockup Gypsy Rose.
Yeah.
And so now this is called The Final Chapter, Natalia Grace, but
who knows?
Right.
Who knows? What are we going to do a 6-part Avatar series? Are we going to have Wicked in 2 parts? Because this is the final one, but we're going to split it up between 28 seasons.
Yeah, we didn't see too much of this in the trailer, but there is like a love interest now in Natalia's life. So what's going on here? This story has truly evolved into so much more. And did it evolve into this, what it is now, because of us, the public? Because did we feed this monster and make it what it is? I wonder.
No, we did. I mean, as I say about reality television, it's only entertaining as long as people keep watching it.
Literally, when we started following Natalia, it was, is she a kid? Is she an adult? Regardless, she is a person that has special needs that should not have been left to live on her own in an apartment. But, did they abandon a disabled 9-year-old or a disabled 22-year-old? Like, I guess that matters.
I'm glad that part has been put to bed, because it's actually the least interesting part of this.
Right,
I mean,
that was what we were talking about. And now it's this.
Oh, I didn't
now
poison.
It's her
I just moved her coffee cup because it was
now it's her leaving in the middle of the night, escaping, and all this stuff.
That's all speculation, though, because again, I am also convinced that this trailer was cut up to get everybody interested in the show, whether the show is interesting or not. It just needs to get people to watch. Once they watch, the show could be bland and boring. It turns out they cut a bunch of nonsense in a dark room to make it look like it was there. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you can hear. I'm always interested when I'm talking about how editing goes in, because I've been there. And I was telling Sarah, in the same trailer we just showed you, you hear the dad going, "We're not going to let you get away." But it cuts off right as you're not going to get away. But it's you're not going to get away. Just like that, meaning that it was definitely like, you're not going to get away with hurting our family like this. We're going to talk about it. Not, I'm chasing you down a street in the middle of the night. Just because those lines were put over a dark flashlight in the middle of nowhere, like a great way, and enough to get all of us interested to watch.
I'm interested.
But we're not. I mean, if that never comes to fruition, and it turns out it was, we're not going to let you get away without a plate of cookies. Like, you know what I mean? That's how.
Without your Bible. Don't forget your Bible.
What? How many movies have you seen where the entire and the only entertaining parts of that movie, that whole 2-hour movie, were just the trailer?
Yeah.
And all the trailer has to do is exactly that. Because once you got your ass in the seat, They've done it. That's it. The sponsors are appeased. Everyone's happy. All they have to do is cut together something that seems wild. And then when you go and you find out how ridiculously tame it really is, it's like, well, I'm already here. I'm going to watch the 6 episodes. Like, there's no question whether I was going to watch this or not, because I feel like I helped bring this to light many years ago. I'm like, but it's not a story that everybody's super interested in. But if you make it sound interesting, then we have reality television. And again, when do you cross over from documentary to reality television? It's a very thin line.
I think we're seeing that segue here with Natalia.
Yep.
This no longer is...
She'll probably get a spinoff of Life with Natalia, where they just have her...
And that's why it feels like a grift to me.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like... maybe she was sensing public interest waning. So what can I do to snatch back the interest of my audience?
Right.
As opposed to just telling her story.
Well, and there's not a lot of employment opportunities available to someone with the level of disabilities that she has. And that's not shade. That's just legit.
And her level of we have made the decision not to really talk about our daughter, but Penny's medication, the cost of Penny's medication, right? When we were going to be doing leg braces, those were what, like $1,300 or something?
The braces, which were going to be $1,300, and then every time we adjusted them, it was another.
Right, and as you grow and stuff, if you have having a disability is very expensive.
It's very disabling.
It's very expensive.
Yeah.
It's cost prohibitive in a lot of ways. I always think about Madison Brown. She's one of the kids of Cody Brown, and she has a kid who had to have a leg amputated. Oof. And so as her little girl grows up, she's going to have to be fitted with new prosthetics as she grows. And I think prosthetic limbs are astronomically expensive.
Thank the Lord that technology is becoming a lot easier with people. Like, you have so many people donating to those causes. Yeah,
but the reason why I bring that up is because they mentioned her shoes, the cost of her shoes on, I don't remember if it was the first or the second season, $30,000 to have her shoes specially built so that she can be mobile.
And they last like a year.
Yeah. That is, and so I get it. I get the grift to a certain extent.
Yeah, but
you gotta do what you gotta do.
I wish I could say that she was innocent in all this, but there's no way. There's just no way. And I'm gonna make my statement about it, that she's, again, already contradicted herself. She is bullshitting. She didn't deserve what happened to her, but she's also playing revisionist history with what she did and what she didn't do to try and make herself seem...
Because something happened with that first family. I believe, if we go back and look it up, I think she was accused of, like, breaking an arm or attempting to break an arm or something.
Oh, and she explains it away.
And then I think something happened. The Barnetts were clearly not wanting to live with her anymore, and they dump her off in an apartment.
Yep.
And then now the Mann's family is going to accuse her of also, I don't know. I am very interested to see what happens. Now Natalia is in her mid-20s. She is telling her story. Apparently she has a love interest that
I'm excited to see about that.
What happens. I had an icky feeling, honestly, about the Mann's family. I wanted to reserve judgment because I'm like, hey, they're supporting her and they seem to love her. She seems to love them.
Right. She seems
but we met a whole bunch of their kids that it seemed like they were just collecting kids, and that felt real weird to me.
That's one of those things too. And this is, unfortunately, it's the foster system is rough, and I'm not going to go too deep down that rabbit hole, but there are great selfless people, and then there are people that there are people that you get a check based on how many kids you have, and there are people that put triple layer bunk beds in their houses, and the foster system is so overloaded Because when you're not in a foster home, you're in a group home, and there's only so much room in the group homes until you get fostered. So it's a shitty situation for everybody, but there are good people who want to help, and then there are people who want a government check and just give you your 3 squares a day. And it's like, well, I'll take, there are people who have like 10 kids, 10 foster kids.
Yep.
And they're just,
I think the man's family had like 10.
And it's just, you have the kids take care of the other kids, you take your money, and then everybody's happy, and you know, oh, they're good, they're getting a better life. And that's one of those very condescending ways of being like, but they're getting such a better life. Are they? Like, okay, yeah, better than shit is not amazing, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm interested to see where it's all going to go. I could do a whole show on Michael. He is a nut job.
Oh my gosh.
And please, if you're watching this, Michael, I would happily interview you. I'd love to talk to you about this, because I don't know if he, like, there's a point when they're talking. So they tried and they acquitted him of abandonment charges. So he did not get, they won't say they found him innocent. They found him not guilty.
Right.
Because there wasn't enough evidence to support the claim that there was anything that he did, blah, 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 blah. Well, they were showing him preparing for court with his lawyer. And the lawyer tells him to smile, and he looks like a psychopath. And then the lawyer's like, a little less than that. And he's like, oh yeah, you can't smile like I'm happy to be here, but you also don't want to be like this while you're behind the thing. You don't want to be like this, blah, blah, blah. And the guy's just like, right, because, you know, you don't want to look like a crazy person like you do.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing. I'm not shitting on it. There are people who are very emotive with their, like, it's very hard for them to they wear their emotions on their sleeve.
Yeah.
This guy just seems like he is constantly in the wrong skin for wherever he is, because he's always just like, you know, and everything's just like, and then I had to do it, and I had to do this, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's just the way he composes himself. It's just wacky. So I could do a whole show on him, but we gotta tighten it up. We gotta wrap it up.
The curious case continues.
The curious case continues. We'll keep on talking about this. Well, maybe good listeners, good watchers out there, we'll do an episodic per episode. We'll do a download, little short vignettes. We'll see how we get to that one.
Maybe we'll do a little recappy.
Recap. Doesn't have to be. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a whole long episode. We'll do a quick recap of the episodes, but we might stick with this one as we go through all 6, because they're episodic, right? They're not a full season drop. It's probably going to be a week to week.
No, it's 2 nights. So it's going to be Monday night and Tuesday night.
All right. Well, so we'll talk about it.
Yeah,
We're definitely going to talk about it. We'll see how it might not be the day of, because, you know, kids. But anyways, it was a good one. I enjoyed talking about this. You know, again, Michael
Barnett. Yeah, he is a character.
Man. But anyways, we got to wrap it up. We got to go. Got to put the kids to bed. Got to get going. But as usual, follow us on all the social medias. Do mostly no harm everywhere across the board. You can find us on your preferred podcasting network. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us at www.level42studios.com. Feel free to submit a question or something you'd like us to talk about. We do enjoy listener feedback, reader feedback. We got to get going. So as always, do mostly
no harm, you guys. Have a good one. Bye.